While the Nazaire raid's main objective was to destroy the Normandy dry dock with the explosive-laden Campbelltown, 265 commandos were also dispatched to destroy other installations in and around the dry dock, such as pump houses, gun emplacements, and the like. 37-year-old Lieutenant Colonel Charles NEWMAN, a long-time Territorial Army man, was in overall command of this force, with nearly two-thirds of the men being drawn from his own No. 2 Commando. He was not only one of the first men to come ashore, but personally led attacks on several German-occupied houses in the area, then directed mortar fire onto a particularly troublesome gun emplacement. Not finished, he then got his machine guns to silence an armed trawler in the harbor. With more and more German reinforcements coming towards the dry dock, Lieutenant Colonel NEWMAN worked to maintain a defense of the area with his small force so that the demolition parties could finish their work. With so many of the force's gunboats and landing craft having been damaged or destroyed, getting the commandos home as planned could no longer be done. However, rather than simply surrender, Lieutenant Colonel NEWMAN instructed the 100 or so men that remained to do the following: to do their best to get back to Britain, not to surrender until all of their ammunition had been exhausted, and not to surrender at all if they could help it. Lieutenant Colonel NEWMAN and Major Bill Copeland led an attack across a narrow bridge in order to escape into the new town, and thence hopefully into the countryside, where they might have a chance of evading capture. Unfortunately, only 5 of them managed to get to Spain and thence back to Britain, while the rest were taken prisoner when their ammunition ran out. Lieutenant Colonel NEWMAN went back to the Territorials after his release from captivity in 1945, remaining with them until 1959. His civilian work, both pre- and post-war, had been in civil engineering, an occupation at which he continued to work until his retirement in 1969, just 3 years before his death. Not all, however, of Operation Chariot's commandos went ashore with Lieutenant Colonel NEWMAN. Some remained on the force's small boats and carried out great work in the harbor. One of these men was Sergeant Tom DURRANT, who, although only 23, had already spent more than 5 years in the Army, starting out in the Engineers. He was given charge of a machine gun aboard motor launch 306, which carried a 9-man demolition party assigned to destroy lock gates and a bridge. The journey up the river was a difficult one, and the motor launch took heavy fire from ashore. Sergeant DURRANT was wounded in the arm, but remained with his gun. Once the demolition party had been put ashore, the launch was engaged by the German torpedo boat Jaguar, at times just 50 yards separating the two vessels. Although wounded, in an exposed position, and illuminated by German searchlights, Sergeant DURRANT kept up a good rate of fire from his gun. He was wounded several more times, but would not give up or surrender. It was only when Jaguar came alongside the launch and captured everyone aboard that Sergeant DURRANT gave up the fight. Unfortunately, his wounds proved not survivable, and he died the next day in captivity. The VCs of both Lieutenant Colonel NEWMAN and Sergeant DURRANT weren't awarded until after the war, in June 1945, more than 3 years after the raid took place, as all surviving witnesses to their acts had been captured. An additional piece of testimony was provided by the captain of Jaguar, who was unreserved in his praise for the indefatigable machine gunner who faced down his vessel that morning.